And today we have a really exciting speaker for you, Becks Perfect of Nifty World NFT. Welcome, Becks. Thanks for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourself and just give us a little bit about your background and your journey here today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. Hello to everyone. It's a real pleasure to come and speak to you guys. I actually went to university in Birmingham as well, so I know the city really well. And yeah, very, very fond memories. But now I work in something that is completely different to what degree I did, which was drama and then a master's in marketing. And I work in cryptocurrency and NFTs, which is a very new emerging market, something somewhat controversial to a lot of people as well. And I kind of came into this about a year ago, which actually makes me quite an OG in this space, actually. This is showing just how new this industry and technology and I suppose this world actually is. And there's a very small amount of people that are working in this, but I think this is kind of paving the way for technology for the future. You would have heard buzzwords like the metaverse and Web3 and things like that. And NFTs is one part of this big exploration into it. So for me, I've been a broadcaster, a technology and film critic for the past decade, well, over a decade, actually. And I've worked for the BBC, I've worked for Channel 4, for Sky, for a number of different outlets. And the way that this kind of panned out and for me to move into the world of NFTs is actually through the pandemic, when broadcasting wasn't really broadcasting anymore. And it was kind of all done on Skype and Zoom, like what you're seeing here today. So I decided to pivot. And part of that pivot was to move into investing in art. And the world of NFTs kind of started in a digital art investment way. It's expanded into so much more now. But once I understood kind of the basics of that, and although at the time I was investing in tangible art, when I kind of saw just how early we were in terms of being able to invest in digital art and what the opportunities were there, I started to create content around it. And I was told in the last few weeks that I was the first ever female YouTuber to talk about NFTs, which is amazing. I'd never classed myself as a YouTuber because I'm still learning how to do that. I'm a broadcaster that uses YouTube as a platform, and I'm very humble about that. There's so much stuff I don't know about that side of things, but I am learning. But I am here to basically make NFTs easy for everyone to understand. We're an educational platform at the end of the day, myself and my team. And we also are an advisory business where we help businesses, small and large, that are in the Web 2 space, so the current iteration of the internet, onboarding them into the world of Web 3. So understanding not just Web 3, but also the metaverse and also NFTs as well, and how they can apply that to their businesses.
Wow, thanks, Becks. First
Lovely.
Female YouTuber to speak about NFTs. What a title that is.
That's quite the accolade, that is, I think.
Yeah, it's weird to hear. And I'm like, really? I'm not very good at it, but that's fine. I'll take it where I can.
Yeah, take that, absolutely.
That's pretty cool. So I'm quite knowledgeable in, and that's a lie, I'm not knowledgeable at all. I know a little bit about sort of the crypto space, mainly because I know how much money I've recently lost today. If anyone else is into crypto, today's been a bad day.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow will be better. But I actually know very little about NFTs, surprisingly. I've never really ventured in. What would your definition of an NFT be?
So my definition of it is, well, let's break down the word. It's non-fungible token. Okay, that's what NFT stands for. And if we look at that particular breakdown of words and we break that into non-fungible and then token, the non-fungible part of it means that something is not interchangeable. So the way I describe that is if I had a £5 note, you had a £5 note, and we interchange that, that's a fungible interchange, and we still end up with a £5 note. When you're buying an NFT, you're essentially buying something that is one of one. Okay, so it is completely unique. And the way that we prove that it's completely unique is through blockchain technology. So for anyone who doesn't know, the blockchain is kind of like an online digital ledger where everything gets written up. So you can find that transparency and you can kind of see who originally bought said NFT, what happened when they sold it, and who did they sell it to, who bought it, and so on and so forth. And the token side of thing means that the token word means that it is a digital certificate of ownership, right? So that again links in with the blockchain. So the easiest way, apart from the one from the £5 note and the £5 note and that interchangeability, is to put it into an art context. So if I had an Andy Warhol painting, for instance, and I told you and had that hung up in my house and said, this is an Andy Warhol, and you would say to me, prove it. The only way I'd be able to prove a real Andy Warhol is to show you the certificate of ownership. Okay. So with an NFT, it kind of works in the same way, except the blockchain works as that digital certificate of ownership. So that's the way I can prove that something is a one of one. So when I hear all the naysayers going, but I could right click that JPEG and I could screenshot it and I own it. It's like, no, you own a copy of something, but you don't unlock what that NFT can actually do for you. And that NFT can unlock so many different things. So if you're looking at it from an Andy Warhol perspective and you own a real Andy Warhol NFT, you'll own something that essentially will become much more valuable because it is an original Andy Warhol. Okay, so if that makes sense in the art perspective. But what we're seeing now in terms of NFTs as well is this thing called utility, which is where an NFT actually unlocks lots of different things, like a return on investment for what you're getting. So you'll get a JPEG or something that looks like a cartoon. In fact, I've got one here. This is a Boss Beauty. This is one that I own. I've just printed it out so that you guys can see it. But I own this particular NFT. So there's not one like this. Not one other like this in the world. This is my one from this particular project. And the utility behind that is essentially that it will give me not only my commercial rights and ownership for this, so I could set up a franchise of ice cream vans and have this image marked on it if I wanted to, and I own that right to that image. But also it will give me access to anything from whatever the founders decide to put out there. So merchandise, exclusive access to events, networking, businesses, all that kind of stuff. And that is set by the founders themselves. So it's quite complicated. I get it. I understand that. It's quite a lot to get your head around. But what the point I'm trying to make is that it's really about true digital ownership of a product and how you prove that within the digital space. Okay.
So if you think about those benefits, then you touched upon a few there. So if you're an NFT holder, you've purchased the NFT, what are some of the major benefits of you having that piece of that NFT and that piece of art? What other things can that unlock, and what other instances or what industries are using those benefits?
Okay, so let's look at the metaverse. And I've seen that we've got on the chat, someone's gone, but it's not very good art. That's slightly missing the point, I think. And the point is that for a utility NFT like this, or I'll take, this is something called a crypto mori, right? This is even worse art. The point of it is that this isn't about the art. This is about what is behind the investment. And this just represents a community. So all the crypto moris that are NFTs, you don't buy it because you're buying a lovely piece of art to put up in your house. You're buying it because, like we say, like those things that it will unlock and it will give to you. So Harry, just remind me again, so your question about the utilities that you had.
Yeah, so you're talking a little bit about those benefits. So you see a lot of companies in different industries, so the fashion industry, for example, tacking on the different benefits to that purchase process. Like you say, access to certain things, benefits, discounts. What are some of the ones that you've seen out there in the market?
So in the last week, I don't know if anyone knows the marketing guru Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary V, he's very well known. He set up his own NFT project called VeeFriends a while back. Now, he purposely did it as a set of doodles on like the back of a Post-it note because it was not about the art. And in the last week or so, he's held a conference in Minneapolis called VCon. And you can only access that by having one of his NFTs. So that is kind of an example in real life of having that. And what that did was bring together people like Snoop Dogg. I think Liam Payne, weirdly, from One Direction was there talking, and a few other big names actually that are very famous. Eva Longoria was there as well. She's very into NFTs. Reese Witherspoon, a few others, and you get access to these people, and that's an in real life event. But then we could take it further and say, in the metaverse, an NFT acts as your ticket to certain things in the metaverse. So someone there's a project called Deadfellas, which looks like little cartoon zombies. If you bought one of those, you would be able to access the Deadfellas mansion in Decentraland. And that is somewhere where you could go clubbing. You could go to speaking events there. You could go and see like Steve Aoki DJing if you wanted to do that. And the only way you can get in is through these access tokens that are NFTs. So, and someone's just written, so an NFT is a transferable ticket. It's not transferable in the sense of I could give it to my mate and they could come in with me. It's transferable if I was to sell it and someone else was the new owner of it. But what it does is it gives you access to things that you probably wouldn't be able to access without that. So it is, like I say, like it's a digital access ticket.
Yeah. So I wasn't aware of this until fairly recently, this whole behind the scenes, access to benefits, discounts, all that sort of stuff. I guess we're going to see brands more and more use NFTs as that sort of leverage to a wider sort of ecosystem of products.
We're already seeing that, to be honest. We're already seeing that. I can give you a couple of examples. Adidas is a great example. So I through a particular NFT that I bought, which is called the Mutant 8 Yacht Club, which is part of something much bigger called the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which might be probably the most famous NFT brand out there. I was given access through a collaboration that they did with Adidas to be part of the initial launch of the Adidas NFT, which in the public sale sold out in 20 seconds. But for me as a wallet holder of this particular NFT that I already had, I was able to get in before the public sale happened. And what I can now do as part of that, now that I own an Adidas NFT, is that I could swap that. They call it burning. So you burn it and then you get a new NFT as a secondary phase of that. But I will be sent this year, and I've just filled out my details for this, I will be sent an exclusive Adidas merchandise set. So sounds a bit garish, but it's like a bright yellow jumpsuit, Adidas jumpsuit, a beanie and something else. And each of these items represent the 3 different NFT projects that have collaborated with Adidas. Now that merchandise that I'll be sent from Adidas, once that arrives within the community, and we've seen this already, they're going on eBay for like 400 or 500 quid a piece, which is just nuts to think. And the increase that you can get in terms of the yield of holding that particular NFT because of its scarcity and because of its value, it will go up. So the point I'm making with that is that when you're looking at art NFTs, I want to distinguish between art and utility NFTs. When you're distinguishing between something that is like an art NFT, you're associating the value and the yield and the way that might increase with value with the artist that it's associated with. So probably one of the most famous current artists that is working in NFTs that we'll all recognize is Damien Hirst. So if we think about how much it would cost for a Damien Hirst in real life, you'd be thinking you'd have to spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions, to buy a piece of Damien Hirst's work. In July last year, he created a collection of 10,000 NFTs and he sold them at $2,000 each. Those NFTs now, almost a year on, are actually worth closer to $10,000, if not more. So they've increased in yield in that way. The way utilities increase in yield is the founders behind them, all the things that they can offer you. There might only ever be 10,000 of those particular NFTs. So there's a scarcity element around them. So if Adidas, for instance, Adidas only released 20,000 NFTs of that. So the moment they all sold out, the price started to increase because of the value that Adidas is going to give you again and again and again. Does that make sense?
Is there a risk there with the what would Adidas be called in this process? Is it the creator, I guess, of the NFT?
Yeah, the creator or the founders.
The founders. So is there a risk there that the founders don't honor the utility that they're offering?
Yeah.
And B, you're essentially, if you hold on to that NFT for too long, to the point where Adidas say, okay, we've done it, we've sent 5 merchandise kits out now. Yep. We're not gonna send any more. It's almost become you've lost your window of sale. Yeah, absolutely. And my advice, I'll never give financial advice on NFTs. This is all going into it at your own risk. This is an unregulated space. Okay, so
education is key, and understanding what you're doing before you put any money down is going to be absolutely essential, because it is described as like the wild, wild west. And, you know, there's a bit of a gold rush where everyone is seeing in the news things that are being bought for NFTs that are being bought for $200, suddenly making $250,000 in less than a year, right? So suddenly everyone wants to get on this gravy train. Yeah. And suddenly when you're a founder and you work out the mechanics and the technology about how to make a collection, if you were to create a 10,000 piece PFP and sell them for something like 0.05 Ethereum, which is a couple of $100, I think, a piece, and you were to build up enough hype and sell that out, you could stand to make like $1.2 million, if not more, right? So a lot of people are coming into this and looking to do it from a buying and a creating perspective. And because of that, there are a lot of people who are not particularly trustworthy within the space, who are trying to make a quick buck. And when, Nathan, to your point, like the people that don't honor what they're doing, this is known in the space as a rug pull. Okay, so you can imagine why it's called a rug pull. People are pulling the rug from underneath you. So the way that kind of works, and we've seen it really recently with a project called Azuki, which was a really, really big NFT project. And I mean, this is when I say it's really big, this people were paying in pounds, probably 30,000, 40,000 pounds per NFT. These NFTs look like little anime characters. And suddenly, you know, this project took off, you know, exponentially. And someone, one of the founders, then wrote a blog post admitting that in his road to becoming the founder of Azuki, he had created 3 projects which he was testing before, which people obviously invested their money in. And he decided to deliver to a certain point and then shut the project down. So he made, you know, X amount $1 million and then just stopped the project, instead of thinking about what that did for the people that invested in the project. So they just lose their money. So there's always a risk where a project can go to zero, right? Yeah. And because he admitted that news, the value of the Azuki, because suddenly they were like, you're part of 3 potential rug pulls, absolutely dropped the moment that blog post came out. Yeah. So everything can always go to zero. And, you know, listen to someone like Gary Vee talk. He says 99% of the projects in the NFT space will go to zero. So like in the art world, you have projects that are considered blue chip. So the ones that are really stable, standard, they've proved themselves, they're going to become the brands of the future. And then there's the ones that are just the short term. You might have made a quick buck, but if you haven't sold them quick enough, they're going to go and you know, and fall by the wayside. Really interesting, isn't it? I think we'll come on to some of those pitfalls a little bit later. So we talk, just reflecting on some of the points we talked about there about the process and the wider ecosystem. Crypto is a big part of this, right? And yeah, obviously when people think about NFTs initially, they might not make that association or understand that connection. Can you talk briefly about where crypto and blockchain sit in the NFT space and what's the connection between the two? Because it's really important, isn't it? Yeah, it is. And I'm going to say to you guys, I don't know a lot about crypto. You know, my journey into NFTs started, you know, with the art. I kind of, as a side hustle, dabbled in investing in stocks. And I then went into starting to invest in crypto and realized that I had to quickly learn how candlestick graphs worked and things like that. And I was like, this isn't really what I do very well. So I kind of had a really basic knowledge of crypto. And then when I got into NFTs, I realized that what cryptocurrency is just an enabler. It is literally a currency in order for you to buy the NFTs. So you need to have a basic understanding. You need to understand how to set up a digital wallet. What are the best digital wallets to use, how they work, how you can protect yourself in this space as well, because like I said, it's the Wild West. So you want to make sure that you're as secure as possible. But that really is about it. And I kind of, the most traded NFT cryptocurrency is Ethereum. So it's, you know, we all hear about Bitcoin, and probably the second most famous one is Ethereum. So really you're guided by how Ethereum is doing on the charts, you know, to your investment. But all you need to know is how to buy it. So you go onto an exchange like Coinbase, you purchase that, and then you'd send it to your digital wallet, which is your MetaMask wallet. And then to buy NFTs, there's essentially like a marketplace called OpenSea. And that is the way I describe it is like an eBay for NFTs. So you go on there and pretty much every NFT project out there that is sold on Ethereum or other similar cryptocurrencies, you can buy and sell and trade on that. So you would connect your wallet to OpenSea, and you would then be able to not only see what you've already bought, but you'd then be able to buy and sell through using that. But I don't want to complicate it and say that it's any more complex than that. There are other cryptocurrencies. There's Tezos, there's Polygon, there's all this other stuff, but there's Solana, Cardano. But actually, if you're going to really just get started with NFTs, I'd say Ethereum is the way to go. And just knowing how to buy and sell Ethereum and to keep track of it is probably the extent of the knowledge at this early stage that people need.
Yeah, so that's a good way to get started, right? Fill up, get that digital wallet open, and then go explore like you would on eBay. Start maybe buying something small and just getting used to that process. And
someone's just said, so it's like setting up a PayPal. Let me just have a look, and connecting it to your eBay account. Very basically, kind of yes, but it obviously with a digital wallet, you know, if you're going to set up a PayPal account and you've got it in pounds, that pound is going to stay at the same price. You're always going to pay a pound for something. The thing with cryptocurrency is that it fluctuates. So, you know, one day you could have paid the equivalent of $100 for something, and then Ethereum drops. And let's not talk about how bad Ethereum is right this moment. But you know, if suddenly that Ethereum investment is worth 50 quid, and it can drop and fluctuate in that amount of time. So you just have to kind of stay on top of that stuff. And right now, I'll be completely honest, in my wallet, because of the fees to kind of draw down the money that you have to pay, like transaction costs and stuff like that, I don't like to withdraw my Ethereum that often. And then when you sit there and you think it keeps going up and then suddenly it dips, I'm sitting here going, I've got this money in a wallet, which I don't want to touch because it's actually worth a lot less than what I bought it for. And I just need to wait and sit it out. Yeah. So it's one of those things. It's a bit of a weird one, but it's what I would say is just, you've just got to be patient, and you've just got to kind of not look at it all day, every day, and slightly play the long game in this if you're really invested in NFTs and cryptocurrencies.
Okay, so what we'll do, we'll ask you one more question, but while we're doing that, guys, we're going to stop shortly just to answer some of the questions that are coming through in the chat, just go through those. So in the next, say, 5 or so minutes, if you've got a question for Becks so far, drop it in the chat and we'll stop, and then we'll do it again at the end. We'll sort of have a wrap up, and then if anyone wants to ask any more detailed questions, we'll have a round. So we had a question earlier, touched on this, and you've shown some of the art there. You know, the pure art, the NFT 10,000 piece, and the PFP collection, they all have these really distinct, clear signature styles, don't they? These sort of very pixelated, sort of portrait type imagery. You know, most notably the CryptoPunk and the Bored Ape. Why do you think this? Why has this become the signature style for NFTs? Why is it? What does it look like this?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I've got another one which actually is slightly different. Actually, this is a G-Vol. Okay, so you can see that this is very different. So the signature style is kind of this cartoon one, probably because it's easy to do, right? But the G-Vols is actually a British artist called Kid 8 did this. And he was an artist who created these cherub characters as like a one of ones. What I mean by that is like an individual piece of art, just as him as an artist. And then very early on, he decided actually there might be this opportunity in the utility side of things, and created a 10,000 piece collection using these cherubs. And, you know, they're quite cool. They're edgy. They're very British, and people are creating stuff around this. I wouldn't say that there is a signature style per se. It's about, and a lot of people are very proud of displaying their NFTs. I mean, there is a reason why I've got these printed out and on my shelf. Like I do quite like them, and they're, you know, and it's cool, but people walk into my office and be like, what is that? What have you got on your wall? Yeah. But there are kind of, how do I describe this? It becomes a brand, right? And it becomes an avatar, and it becomes a signature style for a lot of people. And if you go onto Twitter and you look at the hashtag NFT Twitter or NFT community, right? The idea of NFTs is that you associate yourself with a community behind a project, right? And you're kind of puffing up your peacock feathers to say, I'm part of this community, right? So you would change your profile picture to not show me, you'd show your digital representation of who you are. And I don't think that that is too different to aspiring to have a blue tick on Instagram, you know, or showing off a different digital version of yourself. My avatar, and the reason why I've got this is because it's the most expensive investment in NFTs that I've had, is my mutant ape, right? So this is something I paid a lot of money for, and this is something that has paid itself back tenfold in lots of different ways because of the utility. But this is a secondary collection that is associated with the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which I said before is probably the most famous, famous NFT project. So why do I use this as my avatar? Why do I love this art? Why would I never sell this? Why have I called it a name? I call him Derek, right? This is my NFT. And whenever I talk about him on Twitter, we always refer to Derek, and everyone within the community is like, Nifty World, talking about Derek, you know, there's an association with that. And it comes, if you're branding yourself in this new Web3 space and you're wanting to kind of build an avatar, and, you know, for anyone that knows anything about the metaverse, you create a metaverse avatar to walk around in, and that might wear certain brands and certain things. It's the same kind of thing. It's creating something that is your brand. Now, in terms of this being a computer generated piece of art in a way, because everything is unique in itself, there won't ever be another mutant ape that looks like this. The easiest way to do it is through the computer technology, right? So that you can have different traits that are associated with it. So, you know, there might be another ape out there that has a similar hat, but it's a different color. Or they might have a shirt that's slightly different, which is what makes that particular NFT unique. And the easiest way to do that is through creating it from a computer generated perspective, which might lend itself to the reason why there is a particular distinctive style for much bigger 10,000 piece collections.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, so it becomes an identity thing, right? The same way you wear a football shirt or wear a certain thing.
Yeah.
If you go on Twitter, you can see the NFT straight away. It's not just a piece of art; it's distinct, isn't it? And I wonder if we'll ever move away from that look and feel, that sort of portrait style, into something else. Probably not in the short term.
Maybe. I'm going to hold on to it for now, but I've got a feeling the identity thing will come up again later.
Yeah.
I'll hold on to it for now, and we'll move on to some questions if you want, Harry.
Yeah, let's go in the chat and get some questions. So, Simon's asked a question here, and we'll touch upon this in more detail, Beck. So maybe a shorter answer on this one for now, just to give a quick overview.
Yeah.
So Simon said, "So I've created an NFT.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get someone to buy it? Why would they split it up into lots? Why would they split it up into lots of parts and sell them individually rather than make one NFT and try and sell it?" So maybe let's talk a little bit about that process of that, you know, going from concept and idea to getting it minted. So
really, the bottom line of an NFT, the NFT space right now is community. Community is absolutely key, right? So the way you market a project when you, and these are some of the mistakes that I've seen people make, is that they build a project, right? And then they drop it and they say, right, we're launching it. And the terminology for launching is minting, right? So we're minting a project today. And it's the same kind of marketing like problems and issues that we face in the commonplace that we know today. Why would someone buy something just because you've released it if they don't know anything about it? Okay, so if you're going to release a project, you want to kind of build up the interest and the I suppose the return on investment for people. The way you should look at a project as an NFT creator is that your project is the business, right? And this is particularly relevant if someone is creating a 10,000 or a 5,000 or a 2,000 piece collection. Okay, so this is kind of who I'm talking to, which is what the majority of people are trying to do. Your project is a business, and everyone that buys a part of like one of those NFTs from your project is a shareholder. Okay, so you as the business have to continually deliver for that shareholder. So that those deliverables are those return on investments, and that is essentially, those are the things, the utilities. Okay, so what you do in the lead up to your launching of your NFT project is you would set out a roadmap, which is like a business plan. And it's more commonly seen as called a roadmap. And you can put that on your website and you say, look, if we sell out 25%, we're going to do X, and then 50%, 75%, 100%. And then this is what we're going to do further down the line. And then you release roadmap 2.0. I think a lot of people kind of just think that they can set up a collection and drop it and people buy into it. But people are a lot more savvy now to kind of know, what is my return? What is it that I'm getting? And then it's more about kind of explaining the solidity of the team as well. So the importance of that is that in the Web3 space, there's a lot of anonymity. And what is becoming more commonplace now is that people will not buy into projects unless their founders are doxed, i.e. what that means is that their founders show their faces. They will explain their backgrounds. You can get some level of accountability because, as I said before, this is an unregulated space. So what you need to make sure is that you're investing in solid people who are actually going to deliver on what they say. So it's your job as a creator to build that path through your marketing and communication before you even think about launching your project.
Okay, perfect. We've touched upon this, so this could be a short one as well. So this question here is saying NFTs can only be bought with Ethereum. That's not true, is it? You can buy it with other cryptos as well.
Yeah, Solana, Cardano, Tezos, loads of others.
Okay, so we've got a question here saying, what's the best way to land investors in NFT projects?
So here's the really interesting thing. When I work with projects, they have no capital, right? So they don't really have any investment, and the investment comes after they've sold out. And then suddenly people are interested and they're like, I'll help you get to stage 2 or phase 2 of where you're going. I would love it on the other way around if they could get investment early on, right? But people see that as too much of a risk. And I can understand why, in a space where you're not guaranteed on a return. Like I've had it where I've had clients come to me and say, look, we can't pay you up front, but we can give you a cut of equity. So if we sell out, you'll get 10% of these projects. And I've kind of gone, I can't work like that, because we have to cover our fees. But for some reason, that's kind of the way that everyone seems to think that it's quite acceptable to work nowadays. And the reason why I think that is because, and this is with no disrespect to a lot of people, but there are a lot of people who've come into this as artists and as people who are creators, but not those with a business mindset. So they don't treat what they're doing like a business. So therefore, it's a real struggle to get anyone to invest at an early stage without you having proved yourself. So it's a bit of a chicken and an egg situation in that respect, where you're really needing investment, but then at the same time, you kind of go, I've got nothing to show for it, which startups do face, but because there's regulation and because there's things that you can put into place to protect yourselves, there are things that investors will invest in on that respect. But you've got to ask yourself, what is it that you need to invest in to get your project off the ground? You can do marketing yourself. You can, as long as you can work with someone like who's a developer or a digital artist who can create that. Maybe you can find that digital artist on Fiverr or, people per hour. You can still create the same thing as a lean startup to create your project, but you need to be working along the way. And then what you would do is, as you're selling out along, your particular project, so you reach that 25%, maybe you take some of the funds from that and you reinvest that back into your team to make that stronger. So you kind of self-fund yourself in a way, and not get carried away with all the money you could make.
It's like starting any business, I guess, isn't it?
It's
loads of parallels over there. Right, we're going to move on from the questions because I'm conscious of time. And I'm going to jump to one of the last questions I'm going to ask you and move it to now. So I'm going to shuffle the pack a little bit here because I think this is coming up a little bit. So say I'm a creative, which I am, and I've been dabbling in sort of NFTs on the periphery, looking at, just researching, and I've decided to enter the NFT space. I'm going to take that leap in. What does that journey look like from the moment you decide, but you haven't even put pen to paper yet or pen to pad and done your first NFT? Walk us through that workflow from that idea to getting it up on the marketplace, ready to sell.
Okay. So the first thing I'd say to you is don't do anything except get on NFT Twitter, get on Discord, which is the other main platform that people discuss on, or get on LinkedIn, right? And understand what this space is about. Understand the community, find projects that are doing things really well, and understand what is working and what's not. And the reason why I say that is because things move so quickly in this space. So what is working well this week or what project's hot this week could be completely different the next week. And that's not anything that anyone can predict. So I always say this: education and staying part of the community is key. Once you're confident in what you're doing there, if you're creating your NFT, you know, the art side, I'm not an artist, right? So I don't know how you would necessarily create certain particular projects, but say you're able to do it, and you can layer all of your different traits and things, and you're creating those different types of NFTs, and you've got those 10,000 in the works right now, and that's solidly working. The next thing you do is, as I said before, is you buy your cryptocurrency, you go back to knowing how to set up your digital wallet. So it's most commonly known as MetaMask wallet. That is the one that is the most commonly known within the NFT space, the most commonly used. You then go on to something like OpenSea, and in there you can buy and sell, right? So you would upload your NFTs to OpenSea, and there is something called gas fees, which you need to be aware of. So gas fees are essentially the mining fees for your transactions, and there's sustainability and eco issues around that, but it's something that is associated particularly with Ethereum. So if you were going to upload all of it onto there, you might find that if everyone is trying to transact at the same time, the gas fees will be through the roof. So that's not the time for you to upload your NFTs ready for sale. Okay, you want to do it when they're like $10 a piece or something like that, where it's cheap, but you need to have that money to invest to be able to upload your NFT project. And then what I would say is, actually, before you do anything else, is you need to, you know, once you've checked all the tech side of things, you've uploaded everything like that, it's going back to what I said before. It's your traditional marketing, it's communication, it's getting the word out there, it's building your community, telling people about that. And then when you launch your NFT, and that might be that you've set up a separate website, that you might be a bit more tech savvy with it, and you might have your own website where you've decided to mint your NFTs to, you know, that's where people go to mint them, and then they'll buy and sell on OpenSea on the secondary market. That's one way of doing it. Or you might upload it direct to OpenSea to do it that way. It's completely up to you. But in a very basic form, that's how I see projects doing it. And, you know, it's not really, if you think about it, more complicated than that. It might sound complicated, but actually once you get to grips with it, it's not. It's the same as uploading to eBay.
I'm gonna dive in with a negative next.
Okay.
You
for those.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, yeah, this is the question. Actually, I'm sure you are. So you've obviously clearly, you know, a champion in this space, and I'm sure you've worked with many people, and many people that have got their backs up about NFTs, because, you know, that's also, you know, a community in itself. What are the main reasons you've seen people to you know, not support the NFT market or community?
Look, I'll go back to the fact that it's lack of education, and actually that comes from the media as well. I remember writing a piece on LinkedIn, a reaction piece about a piece in The Guardian that came out that basically said the Bored Ape Yacht Club is like a billionaires boys club, and it's full of arrogant people that, you know, that basically have bought these NFTs and think that they are the next big thing. And I'm like, if you actually look to the community, there's a lot of people who just got lucky. You know, they were early and they bought into it and they got lucky, and now it's changed their lives. And, you know, that's what a lot of people kind of think of when it comes to getting into NFTs in a positive light. The negatives are, this is the Wild West, as I said before. There's a lot of scammers out there. There's a lot of ways that you can have your wallets drained, and you could lose all of your investments. People have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because they've clicked on the wrong link, you know, and it's keeping your wits about you. You know, people like to talk about the negatives more than they like to talk about the positives. And the lack of education, lack of understanding leads to more people going, oh, why can't I just right click and that JPEG's mine? And it's just like, unless you have someone literally telling you, like I am today, about the intricacies of what an NFT is, and unless you're willing to hear that, you know, that's the bottom line, is that you can't learn without actually immersing yourself in that education piece. And that's the only way that this is going to grow. This is, as I said, it's an unregulated space because it is such a new space. We have literally been going, the technology has been going for a few years, but the concept of people really getting into NFTs has only really been live for about a year, if not a year and 3 months. So this, if you think of any new technology, or if you think of any new industry, this is like embryonic stages for this, and there will be mistakes that will be made, and there will be horror stories, and there will be huge gold rush stories as well. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be for everyone, and I appreciate that. And I have had conversations with family members where I have said, I really want to tell you more about this, because I've been lucky enough to make some good investments and do quite well out of it. And I've been told I'm part of a cult. I've been told it's a Ponzi scheme. I've been told all sorts. And you kind of have to go, you know what? It's not for you, and to give you some context on that, my family member, I didn't kind of put the pieces together at the time, but my family member that said that to me, she's a lawyer who works in regulation. So of course it's going to be so far away from what she's interested in and so out of her comfort zone that I was talking to completely the wrong person about it. And then actually, and then there are people who are a little bit more curious minded who would actually kind of say, you know what, tell me more and I'll do some research. I'll understand the basics and maybe I'll get involved,
Yeah.
Okay. So as a creative looking at this space, right, an artist outside looking in, what would you say are the main benefits to them engaging in the NFT space instead of going through the traditional art platforms and getting your work out there and getting it sold and showcased? Why would you come into the NFT space and maybe move away from the physical one?
Because so the thing about, if you're an artist, right, what I love about this is that NFTs can create a residual income, not just for your lifetime, but your future generations' lifetime as well. Okay. Because NFTs will never go away. They will always live on the blockchain and they will always exist in one digital form or not. So the reason why so many artists are looking at this as a great opportunity that has really changed the way that they've never had success before is because it cuts out the middleman. So it cuts out the need for a gallery. It cuts out for music artists. It cuts out the need for a record label because you are suddenly in charge. So you can create your own destiny in a way, which is quite exciting for a lot of people. So there are some amazing artists like Dot Pigeon, Kid 8, who I talked about with the G-Vols. My husband is a photographer. And he, I remember at the start of the pandemic, he was approached by a gallery for his work. And then he was told his work is a little bit too explicit for that particular gallery. So that was it. No opportunity to exhibit, right? No opportunity to make a fee or whatever from that and a living from that particular thing, because it was so dependent on the galleries. And then obviously the pandemic hits and the galleries aren't open anyway. So then he discovered NFTs. And he was able to make sales and take all of the money and not give away a commission. And then when those sales go on and someone else buys that particular NFT, so if he makes the original sale, he gets X amount of money. But what you can do on OpenSea and other platforms like Foundation and Nifty Gateway and other places where you can sell art, as an example, is that you can then set an on-sale royalty fee, right? So this is where the generational wealth comes in for future generations, right? Where once your NFT is sold, someone now owns that. And then if they decide in the future to sell it again, right? And this could be next year, this could be 20 years down the line, you'll get a percentage of that sale. So that could be anything from 2% to 25%, right? So if those NFTs just keep on selling, you are getting this residual income nonstop. So that is why beyond sort of the 10,000 piece collections, artists are seeing this as a real opportunity for them to kind of make that money, because you have this continual income that might go beyond you and your kids and your grandkids. It could go on forever and ever and always provide, providing that there's interest in that particular NFT, an opportunity to earn money for your family. So it's definitely changing a lot of people's lives as creators.
Should we go back into a few questions? Because there's quite a few good ones that have popped up in the last sort of 10 minutes or so.
Thanks for your questions, guys. I think I love having questions.
They're really good as well. They're really good. I'm not even sure where to pick back up from, Harry. If you want to just pick one and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. Let's start the most recent one then. Where can NFT owners showcase their assets and grow the hype? I guess this comes back to your community point, right?
Yeah, it does. I've talked about OpenSea as your kind of main marketplace, right? But you could put your NFTs on any marketplace. So like I mentioned, Foundation. So Foundation is more artist focused. Nifty Gateway was one of the original ones. Rareable, Super Rare, like these are different types of marketplaces. So different, they cater to different things. Some are very art focused, some will be more music focused, etc., etc. But it doesn't matter where you put your NFT, because it does come back to the fact that you just got to market it. So you've got to be on Twitter, you've got to be speaking on Twitter Spaces, you've got to, you've got to be marketing it on Discord, building those communities. And the reason why that's so important, and I kind of link this back to kind of the stock market, is when I started dabbling in the stock market, if I was to make an investment in Microsoft, right, I couldn't call up Bill Gates and go, hey, Bill, what's happening in the next 6 months with your project, right? But in the NFT space, there could be a future Bill Gates, right? And he or she might hold a Twitter Spaces, which is an audio for anyone who hasn't been on one. It's a bit like Clubhouse. It's where you go on and you can speak and people can come in and listen and ask questions. You can go into something like that and you can ask the founder of a project the questions that you want to know about their project. So it is so important, because suddenly you've got this access for your investors to really get to know what it's about and what your project is about. So my suggestion to you is to take all of those marketing platforms and tools and options and use them to your heart's content, because they are the things that are going to sell your project and give that clarity to the investors that you really need.
Okay.
I absolutely love this next question. I think it's really thought-provoking. So I get the art aspect, but what utility NFT offer? What do utility NFTs offer that don't already exist? Why shouldn't the marketing gurus be able to organize the event with tickets and membership clubs with a lot less toll on the environment?
Yeah, look, I totally get that. And I get the environmental issues around this. It is, like I say, this is about how are we going to do things moving forwards, right? What does the future look like? And the future is always changing and evolving and is different. And, anyone could set up an event and market it. I get that, right? This is about exclusivity and community and feeling part of something. Being part of an exclusive members club is the only way that I can kind of explain this in a way. And it's something that people feel that they can come together on. A lot of people initially got into the NFT space because of mental health and wanting to feel accepted, and part of something where people kind of come together and have a common interest. You might have seen this in gaming, we may have seen this in other industries. It's kind of a new evolving element of that. And then founders like Gary Vee have taken that and made that community something even bigger and better than you can ever imagine. So for me, next month, I'm going to New York to NFT NYC, right? Which is like the Woodstock of NFT events. And I've been speaking to people online for the last year and built friendships online. And suddenly, because I am an NFT holder, because I've got my Derek, my mutant ape, I'm going to be able to go to an event, which is called Ape Fest, which only NFT holders can go to of this particular NFT. And I can meet those people and there'll be DJs and there'll be like really cool things. And it's that exclusivity of feeling part of that club. And I don't want that to kind of feel like a boys' club, which was the criticism The Guardian was giving, because I'm not a boy, I'm a girl, and I'm kind of, and I'm one of the few women that actually will have this particular NFT. And I think that's kind of a big thing. It is about exclusivity and community, and that's what it comes back to. And that's why I think is a difference to what exists already. There is a long way to go. This stuff will evolve and it will change and it will become clearer, but we will move more into things like the metaverse. And you will only be able to get into that using access tokens like NFTs. So we're just sort of treading that early path into what that kind of future, that digital future is going to look like. I hope that's kind of answered your question. The environmental side of things, I'm with you. And so are the community. Everyone understands the environmental aspect of this and the toll on it. And I think someone was saying, I think there was a stat which was like, your carbon footprint is 17 times higher to mint a piece of art and sell it as an NFT than it is to post it and get it sent halfway across the world. And to counteract that, Ethereum, the co-founder of Ethereum. They're working on Ethereum 2.0, which reduces gas fees and makes it more energy efficient. Other blockchains like Tezos, for instance, they are trying to create much more energy efficient ways of transacting. And again, because this is so early, it's those things that are going to take time that we haven't quite, I say we, but these people haven't quite, managed to figure out just yet. But I believe in the next few years, they will, and things will become more sustainable. I hope anyway.
Yeah, it's unavoidable, really, isn't it? It's one of those things that's going to have to be addressed. Got another great question here that's come through and said, have you had any good examples of filmmakers and how they use NFTs? We've been spending tonight focusing a lot on static images, haven't we? But there's different forms, different platforms for that. I'm
going to bundle that in with Simon's question as well, who asked a similar question about dramatic or comic monologue videos or audio files. So just in general, things other than images.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's so many different things. I can give you a really good example. It's not film, but there are film projects out there. There's like Chibi Club, which is a great newer project. And they were Hollywood producers who are looking to work with, I suppose, licensing certain Hollywood movies and taking moments of that and turning that into NFTs. There was very early on in the space something called NBA Top Shots, right? And this is the best example of how like moving images can kind of work. So NBA Top Shots, if anyone knows what the NBA is, National Basketball Association, I believe. That is, sporting knowledge.
Nice.
That is, so what they would do as an NFT is they would take, I do not know anything about basketball, but they would take Michael Jordan's like historic basketball shot that everyone knows of, right? And they have the rights to that footage. For however that happens, they had the rights to that footage. They would package that footage up in this moment. So maybe you have those 20 seconds, right? And they would turn that into an NFT and they would sell that, right? And so suddenly you can imagine there's a moment of a rookie basketball player who you might buy, and that might cost you, for that moment of their goal at a college basketball match, might cost you $10, but Michael Jordan will cost you $100,000. Investing in that rookie who made that, if that turns into the next Michael Jordan, that $10 could one day be worth the $100,000 that the Michael Jordan one is worth. So people are looking at different ways in which to do this. There's poets that are releasing spoken word poetry as NFTs. There are musicians who are creating NFTs, photographers, artists, obviously, that they all exist. But there are definitely different ways in which people are looking at the technology of blockchain and having that transparency and creating something that is a one of one, can never be replicated, cannot be interchanged, and doing that as and creating that for whatever medium they are involved in. So wearable fashion, digital items that you can keep and put in the metaverse, all that kind of stuff. Things are changing. There might be like great gaming moments, that you might create from esports or something like that, and that gets packaged up as an NFT. This is all stuff that might happen in the future, and people are still working out how to do that. But right now, that's kind of the best examples. And yes, sky's the limit, I would say. So you absolutely can change into other areas of NFTs, not just static art.
You can explore those different types on the same platform, right? Are they all on that same sort of accessible one, or are they in their own individual sort of spaces at the moment?
Yeah, I think like if you were to Google NBA Top Shots, it would have its own website and you could go through its own archive. But then on OpenSea, there are sport that like it's broken down into sports, collectibles, art, all that kind of stuff, photography, music, and you can kind of find all those bits that you're interested in. You've got to sift through, I'm not gonna lie, you've got to sift through a lot of crap before you find the good stuff, but that's for you guys to spend the time doing.
Okay, so I feel like you've alluded to earlier, we're in the gold rush stage at the moment, aren't we? Maybe this week or this last month isn't the most opportune moment to call it the gold rush, but we're broadly in this gold rush stage, aren't we? People exploring the space, exploring the platforms, and you've seen that language grow from static images to moving images to music, etc. If you were to cast your mind sort of five years into the future, what do you think the landscape will look like then, and how will it be different to what we're seeing now?
Okay, so I personally have taken time to invest in the metaverse. right? So I have pieces of land in the metaverses, in Sandbox and Decentraland and stuff like that, because and the other side of land as well, because that is where we're heading to. And NFTs are going to be that token that gives you that access, as I said before, within the metaverse. Now, the reason why that is so important is because we're already seeing the next generation really starting to immerse themselves in these kind of worlds. What we probably don't even realize is our little brothers or sisters, or sons or daughters who are playing their video games, are already really dealing in the world of NFTs. They're trading for skins and things like that on their games. And, this is something that is going to continue and going to grow. And just like social media, it's going to become the thing that isn't second nature and very native to these kids. So you kind of have to embrace that. 10 or 20 years down the line, I imagine we're going to be in something like Ready Player One, without the whole kind of shambles of the real world, I hope. But we're definitely going to be in a more immersive digital space where we will, if you looked at the disaster that is Meta and Mark Zuckerberg and what he's doing, he just doesn't quite understand his customer in a way, I would say. But the concept that we will interact and work and have those kind of digital spaces to do everyday things is going to be more prevalent. And I think the next 5 years, should I say, is a way that I think the market will settle and it will become more acceptable. We will see more people embrace it. I would like to think anyway. And you'll see a lot more pioneers. We'll see the Apples, the Spotifys, the Nikes that we see now. You're going to see digital versions of those brands. You're going to see NFT projects become evolving brands. The Bored Ape Yacht Club is already doing that. It's a $5 billion invested business now, because that's where a lot of people are hedging their bets that this is like a super brand. Another one called World of Women has signed Guy Osiri, who is like Madonna and U2's manager, has signed them for helping them with licensing and building that into an evolving brand as well. We are going to see these things as household names. And that is why it's good to educate yourself now, because you're ahead of the curve. There are only like 300,000, I think, NFT holders. I think it's that. I wouldn't want to say it's crypto wallet owners, because I think that still feels like too little. But there's a fraction of people who are using and trading and understanding NFTs at this space. And if you think about the Bitcoin of 10 years ago, how much of hindsight do we have now going, wish I bought some Bitcoin back then? I feel like that's kind of what we've got right now. And to your point, Harry, about this month is not a great representation of a gold rush. Everything goes in cycles. And if you know anything about crypto, even at a very basic level, there are bull runs and there are bear markets, and it happens and it picks up again, and then it drops down, and it picks up again and it drops down. And that's exactly what we're in at the moment. We're just in a little bit of a bear market, but we're starting to see the inklings of a potential bull run happening very soon. So we just keep our fingers crossed and hold on till the time is right.
What artists are you most excited about in the NFT space? You must have a few. You used to have a few favorite music artists. You must have a few that you just proper fangirl of, right?
I'm not going to fangirl about that. I do think so. Doja Cat, I have to say, actually she minted a collection, and I think she gave exclusive access or backstage access to her concert through an NFT. And she did that on the Tezos blockchain, which was more eco-friendly, energy efficient, et cetera, et cetera. Anyone that's embracing this, like Justin Bieber did a concert in the metaverse, Snoop Dogg, I absolutely love following him on his NFT journey. He's brilliant. He had an alias like for 6 months called Comodo Medici, I think is what you're called, right? And he was like an art buyer. Nobody knew who this guy was, this avatar. And then one day Snoop Dogg tweeted, "I am Comodo Medici," and everyone was like, "No way!" So behind the scenes, people like that kind of get it and that have influence, and are genuinely passionate about this space. Like John Terry is really into it. I've been on Twitter Spaces with John Terry, and he's popped up and wants to know a bit more about an NFT that he's bought. Stephen Bartlett, he's bought some Bored Apes. There's people like that you wouldn't think in a million years that are, quite respectable in their fields, that are suddenly have this second life of coming into the NFT space and actually taking it really seriously. It's really exciting. So I love to see what those kind of people with influence are going to do for the community. I love to see what they are already doing to embrace it, because that will only bring more people into the space. And actually, if you follow some of these artists, particularly music artists, so ASAP Rocky and a few others that have already held concerts in the metaverse, you're going to get exclusive access to something that a lot of people wouldn't even know where to start going to see that. So if you've got a favorite artist who's starting to mention words like metaverse, Web3, anything like that, you know, get involved. And the weird thing is that you might be able to get direct access to them. Paris Hilton follows me because, and I don't know why, but she's liked some of my posts. And I'm like, that is bonkers that Paris Hilton is doing that. But she is a super savvy businesswoman when it comes to NFTs, and she will explain it so eloquently. And she's created her own stuff. Madonna's created her own NFTs. It's absolutely bonkers. And you're going to see more of this. And I just think it's one of the fun sides of it, I think, is just getting that kind of, you know, exposure and access to people of influence like that you'd never expect to see in this space.
Well, it goes back to that community again, doesn't it? Like, so
yeah,
about that community.
Yeah.
Right. I think we'll leave it there, unless Nathan, you've got anything else.
We've got nothing else. I'm just very aware that we've still got a pile up of questions. I don't know if we want to.
Yeah. So what I was going to do is sort of open the floor up a little bit and say, you know, hang around if you want to carry on with the Q&A, and we'll maybe, you know, get people to unmute or get the video on if they want to ask more detailed questions. And whilst people are piling out or sticking around, we'll go through some of those questions and start there. If that works for you.
Yeah.
Becks, yeah.
That's good.
Okay. So we've got a question here that says, how can you add physical products to your NFTs? I heard of a lot of companies starting to do this.
Yeah. So Gucci is a great example. Gucci, the brand, the fashion brand, Gucci, they teamed up with a toy company called an adult toy company. I don't mean that in the adult toy sense. I just mean that they create fun toys that are more adult focused, which are called Super Plastic. And they basically released an NFT, which very quickly went up in value because it was Gucci's first NFT. And if you held on to that NFT for like 6 months, you then get a physical Super Gucci toy, which will get sent to you, quite like what I mentioned with Adidas, right? Where you get sent this merchandise. Now that toy, you can imagine, because it's Gucci and because there will only be 10,000 of those, is going to be incredibly valuable when you get sent that. So it's like a loyalty program, if you think about it. If you hold on to certain NFTs from certain brands, particularly, and those brands are the future, you will end up potentially with physical attributes as an example of that. Now, on the flip side of that, and this is something that my husband as a photographer has found, which has been really interesting, as an added utility for his photography, when he sells it, he said to people, and he's asked for their kind of feedback on this, is he said, if you were to buy my NFT, would you also like me to send you, as the first person that buys this, the physical version of it? And a lot of people have said no. They don't want the physical version because they don't know where they put it. They don't have the space. They'd rather have the digital version of it, so that if they have, you know, I don't know, like a Samsung picture frame TV or something like that, they can display the art there, but they couldn't do it because they don't have the wall space for the physical stuff. So you could buy a lot more art and display it in that way, and if it's digital. So it's really interesting how kind of that space evolves, and, you know, and how people view it and what they want. I would have thought people would always want the tangible version of it, but apparently not.
I would have. I like stuff.
Yeah, I like stuff.
I guess it shows signs of a shifting attitude towards ownership there, doesn't it? It's not about having the physical thing. It's about, that digital asset, which is becoming more important.
And actually, to that point, Harry, like, I think people will go, why would you want like the digital stuff? And Gary Vee made this really interesting point about that. And I'll keep this really short. He basically said, if you owned, so let's use Andy Warhol as an example. If you owned that Andy Warhol piece and you had it in your home, how many people will actually see that? It will only be the people you invite to your home. So that will be a small handful of people in your lifetime, if you think about it. But the way people like to look at digital products now is they like to flex them online. So, you know, you see like influencers on Instagram, you know, wearing certain brands or looking in a certain way because they're flexing that, it represents them. So if you then have the digital version of that Andy Warhol, and quite like, you know, our avatars, or my avatar is my mutant ape, that is going to have much more reach because it is digital. So people will prefer, and that's how the changing attitudes are working within this. That is where people are looking at it in a completely different way. So just something to think about on that. And it's always got me thinking when he said that you're right. Like, you know, you can have the most expensive art in the world at home, but who's going to see it unless you let them?
Yeah, it's a different value system, isn't it? It's
Yes.
less sort of domestic, and it's more, yeah, that sort of digital global reach that you just didn't have before. The same way, I guess, people, instead of you know, spending money on a house, they'll spend money on a car because they'll drive around in it and see more people. People will be more exposed. It's that level of exposure, isn't it, that you've never had before with a piece of art. But the physical thing, just if your value system is that way facing, the physical thing is just not important, is it?
Yeah, but I have seen people, I would never advise this. I've seen people who obviously have a lot of money, but sell their Lamborghinis. And it's a kind of a running joke. They'd sell their Lamborghinis to buy a Bored Ape, right? Because they see the value in what that's going to bring as a digital asset beyond what, you know, what they've got physically right now. So they'd rather reinvest it in that. So weird world that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
If you're a creative that's attended this event tonight and you think, right, this is the next, you know, step for me and my work, what would be that one bit of advice you'd give someone about to go into it, about to take that leap?
Like I said, like, educate yourself.
Yeah.
You do not have to rush in this space. I know it changes like the drop of a hat, but you cannot go into this space blind. You absolutely need to understand. You need to, like, we have our own lingo. It's nuts, right? We spell when as WEN, and it's like this running joke. And people don't call each other friends. They say friends are FRENS. We say things like wag me, we're all going to make it, and LFG, let's effing go, you know, and it's that kind of thing that you need to kind of understand to really kind of go, what is this community talking about? How do I get involved? What's a rug pull? What is, you know, what are these terminologies that we're using? What does aped in mean? All that kind of stuff. And that's the thing that I think you need to take your time to do it. And there is plenty of time because we really are so early into this space. If you do something now, or you do something in 3 or 6 months' time, you are not going to miss out. You are ahead of the curve. So please, please, please educate yourself. And if you need help, places like people like myself who are there to help. I have a YouTube channel, which has got loads of free content for you guys to learn how to do that. Just search Nifty World NFT on YouTube and you'll find me. And you can find me on Twitter as well, at Nifty World, to kind of help answer any questions as well. So the one thing I will say about this community is that right now, before it gets too big, it is the most generous space. You know, people will literally go bend over backwards to help you because they want more people to have the same feeling of opportunity and hope that they do. So you can ask your questions, no matter how small, how silly you think they are. They're not silly at all. Everyone's there to learn.
Brilliant. We've got an in-person question here from Morstein. I'm going to unmute you, Morstein. You can ask the question if you like.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi there. Just in terms of marketing, how would you go about getting the right target audience?
Okay, so that's a tough one, right? Because you'll find that in the NFT space, you might be surrounded by other creators, you know, as well, and investors. It's hard to cut through the noise because there's so many projects out there. I would say that you need to kind of think, if you're going to create a utility-based NFT project, or you're going to offer utility, is have a look at what other people are doing and look at what you can do to disrupt the space. What can you bring that's different, and talk about that and create consistency in your messaging. A lot of problems that people have with their marketing is that they put something on Twitter and then never say it again. And you forget how quickly Twitter moves, for instance. But if you look at projects like, where is it? Okay, Boss Beauties, right? So this is a female-led project run by a woman called Lisa Mayer. And her motto and ethos, and this is how she built her community, is by using the messaging, women can be anything that they want to be, right? And because there's so few women in the space, when these guys minted back in September, there were a handful of us women in the space. So we immediately went towards this and were like, oh my goodness, this is going to be the project for women, and empowering women and making us feel like we are the boss beauties of this space and we are the bosses and we can do anything that we want to do. And it continues to be one of the most well-respected in the space because they found that niche, and they found that audience to speak to. So don't scattergun your marketing approach and your messaging. Really find who your key target demographic is and go for it. And just keep talking to them, and they will migrate to you because they have to. Because if you're talking their language, people will want to hear it. So it kind of works in that way. I hope that kind of, helps a little bit, Mawston. That none of this is different to what we're doing currently. It's the same marketing tactics. It's the same way of explaining stuff. It's the same way of communicating. So use what you know and try it in this space.
Fantastic. Thanks, Becks. Any more questions from anyone? Are they in person or in the chat? We'll maybe leave it for
I know you put a few in, Simon. Would you rather us read them out, or do you want to pop your mic on and just ask?
My question is, I've got my comic video, believe it or not, that I put on a community group called Phoenix 360, and it's sitting there completely unknown. I don't know how many bits it ought to be in, or how to decide how much to sell them for.
So is it an NFT? Have you minted it as an NFT?
Well, I think so. I pressed the "please make this an NFT" button on the Phoenix 360 site, and I'm trying to see if it's actually on their marketplace. I haven't discovered it there yet.
I'm not familiar with the Phoenix 360, which I've not kind of heard of that site or anything like that. I would say, look, there's two ways of looking at what you could do if you're wondering about price, right? Is that you could fractionalize your NFT. If you have one NFT that you want to sell, right, and you want to get £10,000 for that NFT, you could sell like a ticket. And I'm not sure the mechanics of how you can do this, so don't quote me on this, but I know people have done it. Is that you could build a community that invests a little bit to all get a fraction of that NFT. Right, so that you could get 10,000 people to buy a piece of that one NFT, and that creates your fractionalized version of that NFT. Or you just try your luck as piece number one, and you'll have future pieces that you want to mint in the future, and you see if that sells, and you set it at a price. You look at what the fair market value is versus by looking at other similar projects on things like OpenSea, and see what people are selling for, but not just what they're selling for. Have a look at the sales history on something like OpenSea or Foundation or whatever, and make sure those projects are selling. People can set a price at whatever price they want, but it doesn't necessarily mean that something's going to sell. And maybe it's better for you to sell it at a lower price. And like I said, in that secondary market, when people go to sell it on and on and on again, you'll get that residual fee. So there's a balance between being not too greedy and just getting the ball rolling. Because if you were to create a collection, say you had 10 pieces, and none of them were selling, me coming in as a customer would be like, why would I invest in this? They're not selling anything, So it's almost better to kind of have one thing and really work hard to sell that and get the word out at a reasonable price. And then when you release the next stuff and you've got enough of a community behind it, you could sell stuff at a little bit more expensive and so on and so forth, and build up the prices. Does that help? I can't hear you. Might be on mute.
You're muted, Simon.
I think that's a very good idea if I was ever capable of marketing anything at all. I've completely failed throughout my long life to market stuff. I've invented things, written things, created stuff all over the place. But getting anybody to notice the fact has eluded me so far.
Well, that might be something that you decide you want to invest in, is to get, if you're great at inventing things, you need to get someone who's great as a marketeer. And, you can go to people per hour, you can go to Fiverr and find the right people that you trust, where it won't cost you a fortune to do it. But, with any startup, with any business, remember, the most important thing you can do is invest in a good team. right? So you have a very clear expertise, and no one's expecting you to learn from scratch how to be a marketeer. But maybe you need to kind of say, if I really want to make this work, I'm going to pay someone who I believe and trust, who knows the space, to market it for me. And that might be the investment that you need to make in your project.
That sounds really frightening.
Sorry, I have an answer. You don't have to pay. You go to university, marketing communication students desperate for placement.
There we
and
go.
they can take a project and they love you. It's gonna go to their CV.
Yeah, great idea.
Excellent. You don't have to pay a penny. They'll be placed and they'll be supervised by their supervisor in university, and they're gonna love it.
Yeah.
You don't have a marketeer, Simon, but you've got a business advisor sat next to you, which is handy.
There you go. But if you think about it, if you were a marketing student, when I did my business masters in marketing, YouTube was just launching, right? And if I'd have had that knowledge of what YouTube was going to become, it was so like it literally launched halfway through my masters, right? And if I think back on it, I would have jumped at the chance to get my head around that and be one of those people that really understood that. And I think now with the growth of social media and how that's become, and how suddenly we've got a whole new generation of entrepreneurs, if you went and spoke to some marketing students now, they'll be looking for that next way to apply their knowledge to something else. So they might jump at the chance, and they will put in more work than an agency ever will do. And I think that will really work in your benefit. So yeah, it's a great bit of advice to explore that. I'd definitely look into that.
Can we sell that to you, that idea?
Bex, I had a question that we skimmed over from Simon. He said, if you were to give a bit of advice, would it be to trade NFTs or go straight into investing? I guess the question there is, why would you choose trading NFTs over traditional investing platforms?
Oh, right. Okay. So why NFTs instead of stocks, instead of...
Yeah, let's look at it that way.
For me, it's about being siloed and not being siloed. Okay. So I had no real... I kind of said this before, but I had no real understanding of what I was doing in the stock market. And also, you could invest something £5,000 in the stock market, and it might fluctuate. It might take 2 or 3 years, right, to go between. It might drop down to 2.5 grand, might go up to 7.5 grand. NFTs, this is not financial advice. I never give financial advice, but suddenly there could be this pump, right, in the crypto market, in the NFT space, and suddenly that I don't know, that founder might hit on something that really resonates with the community, and that sentiment will drive the price up. And that's why people see the opportunity as a lot quicker way to make money in some instances, right? And again, that comes back to education and knowing your strategies and taking your time to understand that in the space. For me, as I said before with the Microsoft example, NFTs for me gives me so much more clarity on what I'm investing in, right? That I would choose that any day. It's easier to understand once you initially get your head around it. It's less jargon, less formality in a way. And, I don't have to read graphs or anything like that. I can literally, an NFT can live and die by the community sentiment, and that can change right up until the 10 minutes before it's launched, right? So you can make a very strategic punt on certain NFTs, which I don't think you can do on other, on cryptocurrency or on stocks. So for me, I'm hedging my bets big time on NFTs.
It's a great explanation.
That raises a bit of an interesting question for myself there, or a concern. We're kind of in a bit of an age of cancel culture at the moment. That's a whole nother hot topic. Isn't there a risk there that essentially, a large community could come after an NFT founder for the purpose? So let's say the Bored Ape Yacht Club, a large community, of millions of, I don't know, let's take BTS, Korean boy band, millions of BTS fans go, right, we're coming after the Bored Ape Yacht Club. We're gonna totally just lay into him. We're gonna get that person cancelled. Decline in value, massive.
Yeah. And look, the Bored Ape Yacht Club faced allegations of race issues, not so long ago, right? And the way their team handled that was with grace and dignity and education. and not reacting to that initial, what we call FUD in the space. And because of that, the community itself was like, what are you on about? And they fought the battle for the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And then what the Bored Ape Yacht Club founders did was they released a thread on Twitter, which is like, a series of 4 or 5 tweets, which kind of just in very clear, precise ways answered in a very calm manner after the dust had settled the responses to that. Now, I almost got cancelled by an 11-year-old space because I held a Twitter space to which this 11-year-old wanted to be part of. And I was like, I'm all for, kids who want to do something innovative in the space to showcase that, right? And I said, look, the space is running at 6:30 UK time. I didn't know where this kid was based, right? But it turned out he was based more in the APAC region. And then I looked into it and it looked like he would be up at 1 a.m. in the morning. And so I said to him on direct messages on Twitter, I said, look, I'd love you to come on my space, but I don't think this is the right time frame. I don't feel comfortable having you up at 1 a.m., to do this. It doesn't feel like a healthy thing. I said, I don't know what your parents would say, etc. And he went off on one on Twitter against me, saying that I've cancelled him, and blocked me, so I couldn't respond.
God, what must have you been thinking at this time? How I ended up arguing with an 11-year-old?
I know, I was literally like, I've just been cancelled by an 11-year-old. My team basically got in contact with him and was like, and this is kind of the funny but irrational mind of an 11-year-old, is that they just see that as is very black and white. No, you just don't want me, instead of me trying to do something for their best interest, and how quickly things can change. And my response to that was to not respond, and to not answer it in any way. And then obviously it died down and he moved on or whatever. And then he unblocked me and all things are okay. And, sent him a DM going, are we friends now? Okay, cool. But it is,
what a 21st century problem that is.
I know, it really is. But, you can never be too careful. But I do think, there will always be, communities and concerns that something, like I said, that Azuki example, that was someone who shot himself in the foot by trying to be open, but actually just explaining to himself that he screwed over a load of people in the lead up to this particular project. So then everyone lost faith in that Azuki project, and it basically plummeted in price within seconds, because he wouldn't apologize for what he did, and it was the arrogance and stuff like that. So that's where community sentiment literally can change the game for a lot of projects. So if you've got good intentions in the space, if you're going to be clear and communicative, and you are planning on being in the space for the longer haul, you will be doing well. But it's now harder to prove your worth within this space because, unfortunately, of certain people who are chancers and taking risks like that. Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword, isn't it, of an open community? It's has its benefits, people banding together, but it also opens you up to things, right? It's natural, and it's part of the unregulated aspect of the NFT space, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
I've had a big takeaway from this. So I've been an online gamer and Twitch streamer for more years than I'd bear to count. So I'm very well versed in internet culture, and I've been very surprised today to hear just how ingrained internet culture is into the NFT space. I've already heard you mentioned all the lingo. Obviously, a lot of that lingo is internet speak, right? That's kind of internet culture. Would you say you have to be into the internet culture right now to be in the NFT space?
No, I think you should be open to it though. And you should be open to asking the questions. Like, I never knew what aped in or rug pulls or anything like that meant, or FUD or any of those terms before I got into the space. And I still sometimes have to ask someone like, what does that mean? Or, and actually someone said to me on a Twitter space, a good friend of mine, a good NFT friend who I, again, will meet in real life next month. I was saying like on this space, this person's coming on, they're going to drop some real alpha in the space, which for me was just like, they're going to drop some really interesting bits of knowledge. And he was like, no, alpha, it means exclusive that no one else has heard before. He was like, so you can't lure people in like that. So I was like, oh, sorry. Okay. So I changed that to, he's going to drop some knowledge bombs. And, I'm never going to claim to know everything about this space, and I will continue to ask questions and learn. And I think be open is what my suggestion would be, like, to internet culture. don't ever feel that you're too young or you're too old to get into this, but take everything that you know and the skills that you have in real life now and just see how they apply to the future digital space that we're in. I always call it about applying your digital twin. What can you do to bring it into Web3, the metaverse, NFTs? Because we don't want to forget all those skills. We want to embrace them and we want to apply them just in a different way.
That's a really cool take. I like that.
Thanks.
Yeah, fantastic. Right, I think we've come to a natural end. Thank you, Becks.